Horizons at EPCOT Center in Walt Disney World closed exactly 25 years ago today on January 9th, 1999. Today, I'm going to talk briefly about why it works so well and why people like me consider it our favorite attraction of all time and still think about it today. Original Epcot Center had a reputation for being boring. And there was some truth to that, but there were also some attractions that had the spirit of classic Disney rides like Pirates of the Caribbean with, a slow-moving dark ride going by immersive scenes with animatronics. And Horizons was one of those. It heralds back to the model of the World's Fair attractions like your GM's Futurama or even Magic Skyway, the 1964 World's Fair. And Spaceship Earth and World of Motion did the same thing. And all three of them looked back to the past and then went to the future. Horizons was different because even when we were in the past, we were looking at whimsical looks at what people thought the future would be at that time. Unlike World of Motion and Spaceship Earth, which actually went to the past, had some whimsy, but then went to the future. The way Horizons did this so well is through its ride system, which was different than the other Omni movers where you find yourself, even though they would turn, you'd find yourself looking one direction or the other. You see this in old ride videos where people are often focusing on one thing and missing something else. Where Horizons, because you were basically up against a wall and had the full view, there wasn't anything where you were looking one way and there was nothing to your other side. You were looking out and seeing the entire thing. And that worked especially well with the Omnisphere in the middle because you had this giant view where it felt almost like how you feel now on Soarin' or Flight of Passage. That ride system made Horizons feel very different than other attractions at Walt Disney World. Another thing, too, is the way it presented the future. This was not some grand, miraculous spaceship or foreboding future, or even just something that looked like Tron, like you see now on Test Track. It showed people working in various elements of the future, whether it's the desert, or space or underwater, and you could see people doing things and living in this future. And so we, as guests, could then envision ourselves living in this future and enjoying it. So it was an optimistic future, but not in the kind of imposing way that you would experience lots of Epcot Center with these grand, giant structures, or even how 1970s Tomorrowland looked, where it was impressive but didn't feel lived in. These were families living in these various aspects of their future. And that's what also made people connect with Horizons because it was an optimistic future, but not a stale future. And also, it didn't take itself too seriously. You even had the kind of bickering husband and wife that were, arguing about seaweed and other things. So it took a serious view, but not a serious view. And that made Horizons so special. And now we're going to dig into some specifics from video footage that I shot in 1998 on a VHS camera and talk about a few other elements of Horizons. We begin outside with the Horizons sign as we enter and quickly see Jules Verne. And this goes back to the looking to the future from how it was depicted in the past, like with the rocket hitting the face of the moon. Some fun there, like I mentioned, a little whimsy with looking back at some of the silly ways we thought we might see the future with our flying machines. This reminds me of Dream Flight. And then we jump to the present. This is the Omnisphere, and I took a lot of footage of this, and I want to talk about this because this was very impressive and something you didn't see at a few of those other attractions. Even though World of Motion had speed rooms, it was not on this level. But people look back, you know how much people love Soarin'. And while this isn't the same thing, it's still kind of that idea where this was a massive screen that you went past and was originally intended to be even more impressive, but they had to cut it back a bit due to budget cuts. But you're seeing elements of the DNA strand and people working undersea earlier, and just a lot of interesting elements there. And of course, the space shuttle launch, which was part of many Disney attractions during the 1980s. But the Omnisphere was the highlight of the attraction, and it was right in the middle, and there was still more to enjoy after that aspect of Horizons, like these tomorrow's windows, as right now we look at the desert biome and then jump to the interesting look where we had the guy working on the undersea vessel and then his girlfriend on the video. And then we see the students there that are also getting ready to go undersea. Very impressive. Also, too, I should note the multiple levels where you're up a little higher and then you come down lower and see the kids. So there's more to it, especially in this undersea area where you feel like you're getting a more detailed look because it's not like static on the ground, small scenes. The scenes had life and went up and down. And of course, we could not forget our trip to outer space, which I always loved as a kid. The idea of working in space. Now it might be a little frightening because a lot of things out in space kind of want to kill you. But these were impressive scenes, and the mix of actual sets, which then images in the background and kind of how they mixed together, was very inventive for 1983. And even these sets, because, like I mentioned earlier, the ride system and the way you were able to get so up close to these sets, because again, you're sitting up against the side and the sets are just right in front of you. And finally, of course, we had the choose your tomorrow scene. We chose space, and you can see as we are moving forward through, it was a very cool. This was revolutionary and done through models and cost a lot of money. It took a lot of time for a fairly short scene, but at that time, being able to choose whether it's sea, desert, or space and see a different experience for your own car, for your own vehicle, was something truly special. So I hope you enjoyed this look back at Horizons at EPCOT Center. I feel like I could do a very long audio commentary, but I wanted to use all of my own footage here. If you're looking for what I think is the best ride through with audio and video, I would look up Horizons Revisited from the Retro Disney World guys. They did an incredible job, bringing in multiple different source footage and improved it. And it really makes you feel like you're riding Horizons in the 80s and 90s. This was really just a glimpse so that I could talk about some of the reasons why it's great, but that's going to take you to another level. If you'd also like to read more of my thoughts on a similar level, go to tomorrowsociety.com/horizons. I have an article called Horizons Why It Worked, just like this video. It's going to give more details even than I do here about why I thought Horizons was so cool. Again, this is Dan Heaton. If you enjoy this, check out the Tomorrow Society podcast where I do interviews and talk to a lot of cool guests, including people that work behind the scenes on EPCOT Center. Check that out. Hope you enjoyed this. Love Horizons. I'm not going to say happy birthday, but I did want to mark this occasion, 25 years since Horizons closed. Take care out there. Talk to you again soon.